a supplier had sent me links to all their specifications, and I needed this information really quickly. But it was a German company and everything was in German and everything was in PDF, so I couldn't translate it. And there was no translation. So I basically put it all into ChatGPT and said, can you translate it all? And then I was able to find what I was looking for really quickly. Welcome to the O for Food's Sake podcast, where we unwrap the joys and struggles of working in the food industry so you can thrive in what you do best while sustaining a rewarding and fulfilling career or business. We are your hosts, Lucy Wager, food industry consultant,
and Amy Wilkinson, food industry coach. We've worked in the food industry for the last 20 years and we're here to share with you the benefit of our hindsight. Our podcast is for you to find new ways to cope with the daily struggles, but mostly to inspire you to work on what's not working to ultimately improve your career or business long term.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of O for Food's Sake. Today we are going to be sharing with you some top tips on how to use AI in everyday work life and real life.
Yeah.
to support you. We've done episodes in the past where we've used AI in sort of a more sophisticated manner, I suppose, where it's sort of paid for projects and that kind of thing. But Amy and I both use AI more and more, I guess, don't we?
I use it every day. I use ChatGPT every single day.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite interesting because, like, I don't know if we're more ahead of the game because of the fact that we're freelancers and, or, you know, have got our own businesses, because sometimes I'll say something to it, I'll be like, oh, just put that in ChatGPT, and people will be like, what's ChatGPT? I'm like, oh my God, you don't know what it is.
Yeah, but I think it does help being freelance and independent, because actually I did a webinar about this topic the other day. And before I did my, like, sort of, this is how I use it, and this is like case studies and stuff, they had people on who are like really into AI in terms of like the technicalities and stuff. And they were talking about the risks and all of the sort of, when you're a bigger business, how you could implement the use of AI. Mm-hmm. And that made me think, you know, we're lucky being freelancers because we set the boundaries within our business. Yeah. But in a bigger business, you do have to be really careful because there are limitations to AI. Yeah. And in a bigger business, you've got to control it in some way.
Yes, that's true, because I think in some businesses you can't use it at all. You know, it's blocked on the system because of the risk, the security risk of sharing information on it and stuff like that. I mean, we both use ChatGPT, don't we? And we both got paid versions of it, but it doesn't cost that much, does it? It's about 15
quid a month.
Is it 20 quid a month? Which as a business expense isn't a lot for us, but there's a lot that the free versions out there can do as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
And I think it's getting over that hurdle of worrying about, are the robots going to take over? I'm like, what was that quote? There was somebody said it's not the robots that are going to take over, but it's the people that use AI are going to take over.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why I think it's good to understand what it can do.
And be on the front foot with it all, because there's so many things that it can do that just take hours out of you, potentially hours out of your day.
And also, I also think it's quite useful to understand, to be able to identify when other people are using it and not very well.
Yeah.
Because I can tell if somebody's written something with AI, and that is a big message.
Furthermore.
Because if you are using it, just make sure you're using it in a way which is reflective of you.
Yeah.
I
think for ChatGPT, and there's all sorts of AIs, but really that's what we're talking about today, isn't it? The ChatGPT, like the word version of what it does for you.
Yeah.
I think it's a help, but it doesn't do everything for you. What it does is shortcuts thinking sometimes, or helps you like rejig your thoughts, but actually you've still got to bring the element of you in. So I think it's good for speeding up the like front end, but you need to polish it. And like there's people out there, aren't they, using AI to comment on, like we sometimes get comments on our posts and I'm like, that's an AI that has like, you've never said that. Like, just, we've got spidey senses, haven't we? We can sense when something doesn't feel completely genuine.
Right. Yeah.
So actually it's about using it to speed things up, but not to replace you as a human.
So shall we just explain what ChatGPT is to begin with, in case people haven't ever heard of it? So I was going to say, it's a website that you go to and like log in basically. And then
or an app on your phone. I've got an app on your phone. Yeah.
And it's a bit like a search engine in terms of like how you ask it things. But basically, it's an artificial intelligence chatbot. So you chat with it, in essence.
Mm-hmm.
And it uses natural language processing to create human-like conversational dialogue. And this is the big difference about ChatGPT compared to anything else that we've ever used before.
Yeah, it's not like just putting something into Google and you get a load of pages up. It actually has the conversation back.
It responds to you and it learns as well. That's the big thing. So it learns about any conversation you have, it remembers basically, and it learns the type of thing that you're talking to it about and the questions that you ask.
It learns your tone of voice, doesn't it?
Yeah, and the style that you write in. So it's a form of generative AI because there's lots of different types of AI, but we are not experts and I always get confused. But I just wanted to give you like sort of a bit of a formal definition because that's what it is.
Yeah. And I'll just say that Lucy just put into ChatGPT, how do I explain to podcast listeners or something like that?
Yeah.
What ChatGPT is. So it's so great in that it can just bring you up with answers really quickly.
Yeah. And it is amazing.
And there are limitations. You do have to be careful because sometimes it makes stuff up just because it sounds nice. So you do have to fact check.
Yeah.
But you can actually ask it to name what its sources were of stuff as well.
Yes, because it has access to everything, basically. So it can search things for you. But it basically just predicts the next word. So it's learned like how we communicate. And it's a large language model, basically. So it's had all this input, all this data, and it's learned that. And it was brought out to basically introduce us as societies to AI. So we're not all completely bamboozled, but there's AI everywhere. Anyway, that's a different episode. We've talked a bit about that.
Let's talk about practically how we use it.
Let's talk about how we practically use it because we both do use it every day and it's incredibly helpful. So things that I use it for are rewording emails. If there's like a difficult conversation that I know I need to have and it's like a problem in my mind that I can't quite get my thoughts around properly, I'll type it into ChatGPT, like almost like a brain dump and go, how can I address this? And it's really good at like summarizing a load of blurb into really concise points, which was really helpful for me.
Yeah, you can sort of do your stream of consciousness into it and then go, can you organise these thoughts for me? And it will just do it and it just knows the right way to do it. But I think one of the first times we used it was we had somebody that was a supplier into us that we needed to break, like serve notice on. And we were really worried about how we
wanted to be kind
email.
But professional.
Yes. And we were like, we put in what we knew about the person and how they might react and said, how can we word this? And she came back within like minutes and was like absolutely fine, wasn't she? And we've been worrying about it for days.
Yeah. And I think that has like been a lesson to us because it now, things like that, it saves us the emotion, the energy, the time. You know, it's a real time saver.
So it's brilliant for emails, like put an email in it. And I think we always talk, don't we, about women not being as assertive in their emails and stuff like that. Actually, you could put in, this is what I want to say, please make it, you know, more like a man would say it, or you know, make it more direct or less, or for people listening that sometimes can be a little bit too direct, how can I make this soften this for the end user?
The other thing I find it really useful for is, you know, sometimes when you're just not in a creative mood or you need to start something and you just can't start. I'm terrible at that. I find ChatGPT really helpful. I'll say, I need to start a presentation today. This is the brief. These are the things I need to cover. Can you give me a starter? And then it'll say, if you were doing this, you could do a presentation based on this. This could be your first slide. This could be your introduction. And it just gets you started.
Yeah. And you don't necessarily like take all of it, but you're like, oh yeah, that was it. Yeah. Why didn't I think of that? You know, because it is in there in your brain, but you kind of
you just need a push sometimes.
Yeah. I sometimes say to it, like, I've got this problem or I need to reflect on something. So often if I'm going into like, you know, coaches were always flipping, reflecting and like overanalyzing everything. And I will say, I'm going into this meeting, ask me some questions that are going to help me prepare for it. And it will ask me, like, because I've heard of people using it almost like a therapist as well.
Oh, definitely.
It kind of gets to know you.
Yeah.
So it knows, like mine knows enough about me. And like I say, we've got the paid version. So I think it does more of this, but it comes up and it goes memory updated and it remembers things about you. and then it plays those back to you. So I'll put something into it and say, based on what you know about me, what are the key watch outs on this brief? And it will say, well, you've got a bit of demand avoidance, so you might not want to do that. Or there's a risk of you doing X, Y, and Z, or the opportunity where you can use your strengths are, it's amazing.
And all your previous conversations with ChatGPT is stored on the left-hand side of the browser. So you can go back and see, because I know, I've asked it this before. So you can go back and see. And the other thing is, Amy and I just type, but you can have verbal conversations with it now as well. Yeah. So you can download it and say, I've got this situation. I need to have a conversation with Emily at work about X, Y, and Z. What's the best way to approach this? And it will talk back to you like a proper person.
Yeah. That freaks me out somehow.
I know. Well, the funny thing is, so obviously Amy and I are over 40. And I was talking to someone the other day, because there's versions of this on things like Snapchat. And I was talking to someone the other day, and she's a lot younger than me, still in the work environment, but she is significantly 20 years younger than me. Yeah. And she said something like, we were talking about AI, and she said, yeah, sometimes I message my ChatGPT guy and I'll say, I've got this problem with my friend, what should I do? And the way she said it, she calls him her ChatGPT guy and chats into him. I know. Wow. I thought I was cutting edge being on ChatGPT. That's a whole new level.
Yeah. But I have found it in the last week. I have been sort of chatting to it a little bit, not out loud, but just having having a text conversation. Yeah. It's almost like having somebody on your WhatsApp, isn't it?
But what I was going to say is, I think for people like us who are, I'm at home a lot working, this is where I'm normally at home in my office on my own. I might see my husband if he's working at home as well, but it can be quite an isolating, and I don't want to continually keep texting Amy and bothering her with all that stuff. So it is. And sometimes I feel like it's an extension of me because it learns about me. And sometimes you don't want to talk to someone else about it. You just want to have that conversation with yourself and get your thoughts in order.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick breather here to hear from our fantastic sponsors. They help keep the podcast going, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Ensuring food safety and quality is crucial. That's why businesses trust Microsearch Laboratories, part of the IFP Labs Group. UCAS-accredited Microsearch offers microbiological, nutritional and allergen testing for food, drink and water, delivering fast results and expert support. With over 30 years of experience, trusted by leading manufacturers and retailers, and a commitment to sustainability, Microsearch is your partner in product safety. Visit micro-search.co.uk to learn more.
Fearless Women Empowered to Rise is a program designed to help women just like you step into their power, grow their confidence, and take the next step in their personal and professional lives. Through practical tools, shared experiences, and a supportive space, you'll build the skills and mindset you need to rise on your terms. If you're ready to feel empowered and take action, click the link in the show notes to join us. And we're back. Thanks for sticking with us. Let's dive right back in. And it's about speeding it up, because I think there's, because I'm sitting here thinking, well, isn't that isolating us more from other people? And I think the point is it speeds up the stuff like that gives you more time to go and connect in real life, right? That's the thing.
Definitely. For me, it unblocks me. So, it speeds up those sorts of emails. It will, things like presentations, I always struggle with starting. I've always struggled, at school starting.
It'll give you a structure, won't it?
Yes.
And again, you don't have to completely use it, but it says, you might want to include this, this and this.
Yeah.
Something else that I found really helpful is I do quite like writing stuff down on flip charts and stuff like that and post-it notes and whatever, but you can take photos and it's quite good at transcribing from photos. Obviously, if your handwriting's crap, it struggles a little bit, but generally that cuts out quite a lot of time.
That's a really good point, yeah.
And you can put other stuff in it, can't you? Like I'll put in, so when I do feedback forms and stuff, it all goes into an Excel spreadsheet and I can just put that in Excel and then I can ask it questions about the feedback that's come through.
Absolutely incredible for that. I think one of its greatest strengths is data analysis.
Yeah.
And whatever data that is. So I'm trying to think of what I've used it for recently on that. I mean, obviously I did that market research, but that was a paid thing. We've got a whole episode on that, but that was market research going into a specific chatbot that was just about that market research. That's like on a much bigger level. But if you've just got, so the way I've used it a lot is I'll use it for checking nutritionals. So instead of like calculating it myself, I'll tell it what I need it to do and then copy and paste. And like, if I want to check a claim, I'll copy and paste. But the caveat on that is you need to make sure you must know what that calculation is so that you can look at it and sense check it. You cannot rely on ChatGPT to do stuff. It's a friend to speed you up. You still need to know what you're doing.
Yeah, it's not always accurate.
No.
And I'm just thinking about sometimes you have to be really specific with it, because I used it recently to do, I had like 20 people and I needed to do breakout groups and I wanted them to all be different and stuff like that. And I put a list of names in and stuff like that. And I was like, this exercise is in threes and like mix all the people up. But it ended up, I wasn't specific enough with it to say, don't put the same person in two groups at once, or, like it didn't do it accurately. And so sometimes it makes mistakes.
Yeah.
And I remember when we had Claire on talking about it, it has hallucinations, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like sometimes it will just say something because it sounds good.
Yeah.
So it isn't about 100% accuracy. It's corner cutting more, isn't it? But you need to check stuff.
Yeah. And the really good example is if you ask ChatGPT how many R's are in strawberry, it can't get it right.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's weird.
That's a good example. And the thing about ChatGPT is it is really confident. So everything it says sounds, it's true.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Of course I can do that for you.
So
yeah.
These are the big things, I think this is why it's that like bigger companies restrict it, because can you imagine how damaging that could be if you just let everybody use it?
Yeah.
But so we're lucky because we can manage it ourselves.
Yeah. But I do think it's good for things like if you can remember that it's this language tool, and yes, it's got the ability to analyze and stuff like that, but like it can translate stuff for you. It can come up with good, I'm always coming up with new names for programs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I kind of go backwards and forwards with it, like, and it'll come up with a load of examples, and then you can refine it even more and go, well, I like the element of this bit that you did. What else could we come up with? So it is all about the conversation, isn't it, that you have with it?
Yeah. It's really, really clever. And so translation. So I had an example of how I used it recently. A supplier had sent me links to all their specifications, and I needed this information really quickly. But it was a German company and everything was in German and everything was in PDF. So I couldn't translate it and there was no translation. So I just asked, I can't remember which way around I did it now, but I basically put it all into ChatGPT and said, can you translate it all? And then I was able to find what I was looking for really quickly.
Yeah, no.
I know that we've got Google Translate, but it's better than that because I could put I downloaded a PDF in German and it downloaded the whole thing for me like in 2 seconds.
It's amazing, isn't it? Well, and it's the speed of it, isn't it?
Yeah,
that makes such a difference. And
that's what's incredible.
You can also, I was just thinking about another thing. So if you are doing a proposal or a pitch or something like that, you can get it to go and look at, say, the values on the website of the business that you're pitching to and get it to help you weave that into your proposal, or ask it questions like, based on what you've seen on this website page, how do you think I should approach this? Now, it's not always going to be like, or keep caveating that this is not to replace your independent thought and your years of experience and all of that sort of stuff. But what it does is just cut out the time and other noise going on, or just when you're really struggling to get going on something.
Yeah. And I think the talk that I saw at the IFST conference by Nick Watson, who's a professor in AI and food, showed this really interesting slide, which showed there's a particular word. It's not one that we've said. It's one that I can't remember what the particular word is at the moment. There's a particular word that's like known in ChatGPT language, a normal word. And he showed this slide of scholarly articles that were written that contained this particular word. Say furthermore, it wasn't furthermore. It was like more.
It wasn't fostering, was it? Because I've had to tell my ChatGPT to stop saying fostering and everything.
More common than that. That's why this is interesting. It was a more common word than that.
Yeah.
And in 2019, there were like 2 mentions of this word. And then in 2023, it's like off the scale. And he did that to show like how many people are using ChatGPT. Doesn't mean they're using it to be plagiarized, because there's ways that you can use it and still get your language in and your thoughts in. But I would not want to be at school during this era.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because like it would be so tempting to like use it, but it's so weird, isn't it? Because the world is moving on, and there's so much where we feel like, you know, like screen time for our kids and stuff like that. It's like, oh, this doesn't feel well, just because we didn't have it doesn't, you know, they will have screens all the time going forward.
You know, I was thinking about this because my daughter, she'll be on my phone or her iPad, and say she'll search for something, she won't type. She never type. She'll speak it. And I'm like, oh, that's so weird. Like, why would you do that? And I'm like, well, that's clearly like the new thing. Yeah. Because she doesn't like typing or writing.
Yeah. Well, it's quicker, isn't it, as well?
It's quicker. And I was thinking yesterday, because she was saying, oh, I think I'm going to get my pen license. And I thought, I wonder how long it will be. You know, will we always write, or will that die out? Will it be like an old-fashioned thing?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's I always have these like post-apocalyptic things in my head because I'm into those sorts of films and stuff, and I'm like, but what if we lose the ability to do all of that?
Well, exactly.
Like, I always think of that. Was it WALL-E, the Disney
I've never
thing?
Seen that. I haven't watched that.
It's like it's the robot in the wasteland in the future type thing, and everybody is basically living their life through sitting in like big, like almost like wheelchair type things, like gaming booths almost, living their life through the screen, and everybody's massive and
like VR.
It feels a little bit like that, doesn't it? But I think we're going down the route of scaring people about AI, but I think it's the purpose of that. That wasn't the purpose of this episode. It was to say how great it is and helpful, and how helpful it can be, and that you can use it in your day to day.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say, so really good example. So, because I know a lot of people want to be more active on LinkedIn and do more and that kind of thing. And there's so many barriers to that. And I did a post yesterday because I needed to get some engagement for something I'm working on for a client. I need to speak to quite a lot of people in a particular area. And I wrote out what I was doing with my client, what I needed, and put it into ChatGPT and said, can you make an engaging post that I can put on LinkedIn to get people to come to me? And it like wordsmithed it. It was my words, but wordsmithed it, put the icons in, and I just copied and pasted. It took me 2 minutes and boom.
Yeah.
It's so good for stuff like that.
Yeah. And we've done it today. It means that I can give a tone of voice guide to other people. So if people are writing website copy or whatever, they've got like the guidelines to what my tone of voice is, because it's learnt my tone of voice. And you can upload stuff into it and say, like, say part of the way it's found out what my tone of voice is by linking it to my website and going, read this.
Yeah.
Because I've written that myself, and then it knows how I write and stuff like that. It is really, really helpful. I think it helps with the creative. It feels like it shouldn't, but I did a creativity workshop a couple of weeks ago, and one of the exercises, I think I've done this with you before, Lucy, is when we're doing the like re-expression and express the problem as if you were a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
You can actually get ChatGPT to do that for you.
Yeah.
Or say to it, I need to explain this really complex document. Help me explain it in layman's terms, or as if it's to a child.
Yeah. And that's the other thing that it can do. You can give it a document and say, can you summarize the key points out of this for me?
Yeah. Oh, I use Otter AI
Yes, that's another brilliant AI tool.
Transcribe. Yeah. So that can join your Teams or Zoom calls, and it transcribes the meeting. I know Teams does transcription, but what it does is it instantly summarizes. So within 2 minutes, it will summarize what the actions were and give you a summary of the meeting. I used it for parents' evening the other day. I just had it on, and then it just gave, so rather than taking notes, it was just there, and it came up with the summary, and I shared it with the grandparents. This is what teacher said. She's amazing.
I made that. Don't need Otter. Yeah. Amazing. So did they, to be fair.
Well, yeah. Stop.
I really want to remember what I'd done the other day that I thought I must mention that. I can't remember. But I think the thing is, there's lots of ways that you can use it. It's a tool that you can make quite personal to you.
And I think that's the key. Like, use it to speed you up, to help you in those blocked moments, but don't just copy and paste, like, because it's too obvious. Like, it's the posts that you see on LinkedIn and they've got the rocket emoji at the end. Like, it often puts rocket emojis on things. Like, we know that you've just copied and pasted that.
But I like a rocket emoji, though. I put rocket emojis on stuff.
Well, that's fine. But, just make sure it's not obvious that you have used AI. And I think it's important. Even, it will default to American spellings of things, so people will know instantly, for instance. But we would love to hear from you, having listened to this episode. What are you going to try out? What AI tools are you going to try out? How are you using it?
Yeah, do you use it in a different way that we haven't talked about?
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah, I think it's a really exciting time, and the tools are there to be used.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking as well, Lucy, we've talked about like how we feel in a better place in the last year, even though we're as busy as we've ever been.
We've been
and
using
I think actually ChatGPT has been part of that, because it has been able to speed up a lot of processes for us.
Yeah. And I think it's speeding it up, and it takes that weight off. So the things that kind of weigh on your mind, it relieves you of.
It helps with the mental load.
Yeah.
It can even, we haven't even talked about this one. It can do your meal planning.
Oh,
it can.
Yeah. And I was also going to say, it will also, so I went to New York recently, and I'm going to do another safari guide. It can help you with stuff like that. So I got recommendations from people. I put in the places that I'd researched myself, told it where I wanted to go, and said, what other recommendations are there?
Yeah.
And that's when it's good as well, when it can give you the sources. Then you can because I like it to sense check what I'm already doing.
Yes.
And that's a really good way of doing it.
And is there anything else you would add, Mrs. ChatGPT?
Yeah. So there's so much that you can do with it.
Yeah, so give us some more ideas, and come and talk to us on social media and let us know what other ideas you've got.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, how you can use AI.
Hope you found it useful.
And we will see you next time.
See you next time. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it, rate and review us. It really helps us reach more food industry pros like you.
For more resources, head over to our website, overfoodsake.co.uk, and join our mailing list to stay in touch.
And if you'd like to connect with us, come say hello on LinkedIn. We're both there, Lucy Wager and Amy Wilkinson.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.